Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Beyond Trek Podcast. I am your host, Big J, and I'm here along with Megan, who is from the podcast Tribbles and Transporters. So, Megan, I just want to thank you very much for being able to attend this. I know it's kind of last minute, but sometimes that's just how life goes.
Yeah, I'm happy to help out.
That's great. So today, what we're going to talk about, we're going to be talking about Benjamin Sisko and the actor who plays him, Avery Brooks. So May 22nd is being named Captain Sisko Day. And so the way that came up was Cirroc Lofton, who was the actor that played Jake Sisko. He's part of the podcast called The Seventh Rule. Well, himself and Ryan T. Husk, who's one of the co-hosts there, they took is when Sisko was named the Emissary, when he arrived to DS9, they took that star date and went back with it to establish this was the date. If you take the star date and go back, this was the date of that time when that happened. So I want to jump right in and talk a little about Avery Brooks, the actor, and Ben Sisko, the character. And I've got some notes here, my trusty notes, because I am known sometimes for going off tangent, being maybe a little long-winded. But before I do that, why don't we do this? Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how Tribbles and Transporters became introduced with us and with Beyond Trek?
Yeah, so my name is Megan. I'm one of the three co-hosts of the Tribbles and Transporters podcast. Just to give you a brief synopsis of our podcast, we're three Trekkie gals who grew up watching Star Trek, and we actually go back and review the episodes of the completed series. So the original series, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. And on our podcast, I am the resident super fan of Deep Space Nine. So I was very honored to be asked to be a part of this today. And then we joined recently in with Big J and 4 other podcasts as part of the Starfleet Podcast Network. So we once a month put out recordings across that network, and we just sort of cross-pollinate between our podcasts just to get a wider range audience. So this was very exciting for me to be able to be a part of this with Big J today.
And I really appreciate you doing that. And so for anyone who wants to see a little bit more about us, that's the Starfleet Podcast Network. That is the website starfleetpodcast.net. You'll see some more about our podcast, Beyond Trek Podcast, Tribbles and Transporters, Highly Illogical, which is a really cool quiz show-based Star Trek podcast, and Trek Talk, which has a focus on the gaming side of Star Trek. So as we get started here, and what I want to do, and this is what we've got going on today, I'm going to talk about something that is really near and dear to me, that is kind of like what Sisko went through with a trauma at a point where he lived in the past and used that to shape and guide who he was and who he became. Before we do that, I do want to talk a little bit more about Avery Brooks and give you a little bit of background on him. So Avery Brooks was born October 2nd, 1948. He's an American actor, director, singer, narrator, and educator. So he is a man of many hats and talents. He's best known for his television roles as Captain Benjamin Sisko on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and as Hawk on Spencer for Hire and his spinoff, A Man Called Hawk, and as Dr. Bob Sweeney in the Academy Award-nominated film American History X. Brooks has delivered a variety of other performances to a great deal of acclaim. He has been nominated for a Saturn Award and 3 NAACP Image Awards. Brooks has also been inducted into the College of Fellows of the American Theater and bestowed with the William Shakespeare Award for Classical Theater by the Shakespeare Theater Company. So, a big background in a lot of different things. And music was something that was filled in the household. because his mother was the first African American woman to earn a master's degree in music at Northwestern University. So anywhere where they lived, she taught music. And one of the quotes he has here is, "Music is all around me and in me as I am in it," which I think is a very poignant statement there. Now, I want to give you an interesting little tidbit about his role as Benjamin Sisko on DS9. And I don't know if this is very well known out there, but he played part of Hawk in Spencer for Hire and then A Man Called Hawk. So got a little bit of trivia here for you, Megan.
Okay.
Do you know why Avery Brooks did not start out with the no hair and goatee look for DS9?
I mean, I can only assume it's just to differentiate the characters.
There was that. There was to differentiate the characters, and another thing, because the producers felt that he would look too urban with that. So, you've I know, right? You've got the first African American man playing a captain lead on the Star Trek series, and he beat out 100 other actors from all racial backgrounds. And so, yes, that is one hell of a feat right there. And he's perfect for the role. I could not see at all. I'm looking through some of these other roles. I mean, there is no one else who could play that part. Like he embodies Captain Sisko.
Right. And is like my favorite, like out of all the captains of the completed series, he's my favorite captain. Like I would gladly serve under Captain Sisko's command, like wholeheartedly.
Well, and he was such a such a different type of captain and leader, than Kirk and Picard, Janeway and Archer. Not saying that there's anything wrong with any of those characters, but Sisko really came off to me as that no nonsense, not afraid to punch Q in the mouth kind of guy.
Right.
And this was I don't remember the episode, but Jadzia was talking to Worf about, she wasn't talking to Worf. There was a conversation happening, I believe it was Jadzia and Sisko, that how Worf was intimidated by him. Now, that is, to me, I think that's a hell of a compliment. Like, isn't that,
right.
That's crazy.
To intimidate a Klingon, yeah.
To intimidate a Klingon, that is not easy to do. But Sisko could do that. And the other thing I like about the character is the portrayal and relationship with his son, Jake.
Right.
And as it shows something we had not seen before in Star Trek, and that is a single father,
right,
raising a child on a space station. So you have that dynamic as well with the character. He is a father, and all the things that he does in day to day with this post, with this command, he's got to be thinking about his son as well. Any issue, any problem, any attack on the station. Can you imagine what kind of pressure that would be for you to have a child with you while you're serving on an installation like that?
Right. It would be intense. And the fact that he so loved his son, so wanted the best for him, that considered resigning from Starfleet at the very beginning just to be able to provide the best life possible in the best situation possible for his son. And then would drop everything. That didn't matter what was happening on the station. If something happened to Jake, he was out. He was going. He was getting to his son. And I love that. I love that the priorities were so laid out and so clear, and their love for each other was so strong.
It was, and that was one of the things that was that connection between Avery Brooks and Cirroc Lofton. They were like father and son, even off camera. They did a lot of things together. different events, basketball games, etc. Which, when you really think about it, I mean, that's kind of awesome to have
Yeah.
this character, this person that is not just the character playing the father on a TV show, but seems to kind of have that role in real life as well.
Hmm.
And to
It's
me,
always so good to meet people that well, you meet them through work in this instance, that outside of work they want to pour into you and to invest in you. That's always such a fantastic thing.
making that investment is a big thing. So this is the thing that I want to get into, want to dive into, and what I feel is a big thing that we haven't seen in Star Trek before at that time that DS9 really came out swinging with was the trauma that Benjamin Sisko suffered during the Battle of Wolf 359 and losing his wife.
Hmm.
And not just that, but knowing that the man responsible for that is someone that he had there face to face. And I think Sisko lived in that moment, and he was able to take that moment and to learn from it and to guide off of that and to not let it define everything that he is, but to make him stronger.
Hmm.
Now, and that's what I want to talk about. And for our audience out there watching or listening, I want to give just a brief. There's going to be some personal things we're talking about here. I want to give a trigger warning just in case if there's anything that either myself or Megan are getting into in regards to any past traumas or life events that we're living in. Totally understand if you need to excuse yourself from the stream or the recording. So for me, this is my personal moment that I live in. And I had a discussion earlier this morning with one of the co-hosts with Beyond Trek podcast. His name is Dag. And I told him, I said, so here's the thing that I'm going to talk about. It was my life in football. Now, when I was young, my path in life was kind of set out for me. It was, you're going to play sports, you're going to do football in high school, get a full ride scholarship to wherever you want. And I really, at the time, could pick anywhere I wanted to go. And then after that, it would be playing the NFL. After retiring from there, would be one of those talking heads on TV. And what happened was that whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, I took it as a good thing, but I really had a lot of success in it in high school. Was popular, a lot of attention, more awards than I could count. And so it really felt like it was my idea. And the ironic thing is that even today, I wasn't a big sports fan, really am not. But that was something that I was good at. So I went on to college, and before that, I let the popularity and everything else get to me. I tried not to, but I kind of bought into it. I said, yeah, you know what? I am hot shit around here. I'm really good at what I do. And so I had this feeling of, I guess, entitlement when I got into college that I didn't have to really try too hard. I was going to get whatever I wanted, whatever I needed, but things weren't going that way. And if anything, the career was falling flat, honestly. And there were some words getting tossed around. Is this recruit a bust? He was the number one offensive lineman in the country coming out of high school. And the thing that was frustrating for me was that I wasn't getting it. I wasn't succeeding the way that I wanted to or the way that I thought I should. So I redshirted that first year. And when you redshirt, just to give you a little bit of background on that, it means that you get another year of eligibility in a sport. So you attend the games and you do the practice, but you don't play in any games. So as long as you don't play in any of the games, then that first year is like, it doesn't count, you know? And I got to tell you, that was a slap in the face, huge slap in the face, because I was expecting to play, to be a starter, because I was so good. I was cool. I was supposed to get all of this stuff. But then after my second season, I wasn't a starter. I was a backup. I had a chance to excel and to take that spot as a starter, but I wasn't good enough. And that was very hard for me to accept and to live with. And one of the things I did to start being able to cope with all of this is turning to alcohol. Started to drink and party all of these things away. So we go to a point where I had a shoulder injury. And it wasn't like a one-time kind of thing. It was a cumulative damage that had started in high school from playing. And the doctors at the time, I had to get a CAT scan, not a CAT scan, that's for your head. MRI, take a look at it, and the doctor said, so you have damage to the rotator cuff, muscle strains, tendonitis, all kinds of things. So the choices I was given was you could not get the surgery, not get it fixed, and have the chance of permanent damage. Or I'm sorry, the chance it would get worse. You could get surgery and continue playing, and if you re-injure it, there could be permanent damage. Or you can get the surgery, stop playing, and maintain your scholarship. So there were a lot of thoughts in my head there because I was 20 years old at the time. And at 20, the concept of permanent is kind of hard to grasp.
Right.
It's hard to grasp now. I'm a left brain numbers kind of guy. What is permanent? What is forever? And it's very hard to quantify that. And so I felt like, okay, this is not going well at all. The education I picked at Ohio State was to get a degree in broadcast journalism. And the reason I was doing that was because those were the steps: high school football, college football, NFL, talking head on TV. So I figured, well, I might as well get a degree in the kind of thing that I'm going to do, that I'm supposed to do, or have the, I can't think of the word for it. But anyway, I thought about the career that I was having and that it wasn't going well. So what I did was I picked the easy way out. I said, all right, I want to get the surgery. I'll stop playing, maintain my scholarship. And for me, it really felt like that was a branch off point that I think people can look back and think, what was the thing that caused you hurt and anguish in your life and something that you regret doing? What is that point where you could have gone right, you could have gone left, and you picked one, and it completely had a different shape in your life than if you'd made the other choice? And the thing that's ironic there is that choice wasn't taken from me. I made it. I made it myself, and even to this day, there are times where I regret it. And I know everyone says, well, you shouldn't go back in time and change anything because it would change who you are, what you've become, and it took a long time to be able to grow from that. And I lived in that moment for the longest time. And what I turned to was, I thought, well, what am I supposed to do now? And I supplemented that loss of what so much of my life and identity had been tied to. That was the thing, was I had a loss of identity. Who am I now? This was the whole thing. And what happened was I supplemented that with bouncing around from party to party like I was freaking Lindsay Lohan on tour, and drinking like I was in Motley Crue. But that was how I filled that gap. That was how I supplemented where I was in life. There was I tried to replace something that was such a part of me that when it was gone, I didn't know who I was. It was like just being lost. And that was something, that's a moment I've lived in for way too long. And we're talking decades of just being angry, being disappointed. I tried to forget all of it and block it out. Guys I played football with, that I was friends with, separated myself from them, pushed them away. Even to this day, I'm not in contact with any of them because I felt like, well, I alienated myself from the program. I felt like I was robbed of something that I was supposed to get. I couldn't understand why was I not getting what I felt I was entitled. That was the word I was looking for. Why wasn't I getting what I felt I was entitled to get? And that just made things worse. And it took a lot to be able to take that and look at the upside from it. What is it that you learn from that? How can you grow from that? And one of the things was, I do have some regrets of pushing away friends and disconnecting myself as much as I did. And I carried that anger for a long time, just lashing out at some of the littlest things, being extremely jealous of these guys that were still in the program playing the game. But I had to change my life. I had to find something else, and essentially a new identity. I had to create a whole new identity for myself because I realized, okay, well, I didn't know it, but I guess I didn't have it. And so that was something for me that was like Sisko's moment in trauma that he lived with and stuck with for too long. And I did the same. But talking about it is a good way to own up to it and to be able to, it's a good thing to not hide from it and to not keep that distance, because you take the power away from it when you talk about it. And one of the things that really resonated with me that I was told at one point, and this was when I was just about really kind of drinking life away. That was my coping mechanism. I was told, with what you're doing, how you are, what you've gone through, it's not your fault. And that was, I didn't know if I was ready to accept that, because in my mind, I said, well, it kind of is. This is my fault because it's not something that was like a career ending. Your only choice is you have to stop playing. You're gonna die if you keep doing it or whatever. I had the choice, and I made that. And there's nothing like making a choice that you regret, and do I still regret it? Sure. Do I think about what it would have been like if I stayed in it? Sure. Am I the person I am right now that I am okay with? Am I okay with me? The answer to that is yes. And that is something that I didn't, it took a long time to be able to say that, to be able to say, yes, I'm okay with me. This is who I am. And I shouldn't try to pretend to be someone else. I shouldn't hold on to the past celebrity, popularity. I don't need that. There's a lot more in my life than doing that, than being that person that was looked up to, was encouraged to do something that I felt like I was gaslit, whatever the past word for gaslight is.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of made, it was made like, okay, well, this was my idea to do this. And then I took it away from myself. So that for me took a long time. It was a very long time. We're talking, I spent basically the entire decade of my 20s. If I could take that segment, take it away, it would be better. Like it was just. Have you ever watched a train wreck and you couldn't look away from it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I spent a good couple decades doing. I'm 45 now. This happened when I was 20, and even now, it still doesn't not affect me, or it's not something that I don't ever think about. So those things can really kind of stick with you. So I'm curious to hear from you, Megan. What is that point? What is your Sisko losing his wife Jennifer point in your life that has you living in the past longer than you should, with you existing in that trauma?
I would say for me, would be the loss of my dad to cancer. So he was diagnosed 9 years ago with stage 4 esophageal cancer, which esophageal cancer is just awful. It's a very hard to diagnose cancer because people seek out treatment for the symptoms. And so usually by the time esophageal cancer is found, it's very advanced. And so when my dad was finally diagnosed with it was in his lungs, it was in his liver, it was in the lymph nodes around the primary tumor in the esophagus. So he was not given great odds when he was diagnosed. What we were fortunate on at that time was that he was already seeing an oncologist. He had a hereditary blood disorder that he was having to seek treatment from a hematologist oncologist. So he was already established in with this oncologist, and this doctor was fantastic. But I'm originally from Tennessee. I live in Texas now, and I'd been living in Texas at that time for about, oh gosh, 10 years, 12 years. And so I was very far away from my family. And so when he was diagnosed, he was given a 30% chance to live a year. He ended up living a year and a half, which was fantastic. He responded really well to treatment initially, rallied. And so, like, I was very fortunate with where I work that I was able to go back home a lot just to help my family out. But like that was my trauma, like having the loss of my dad, who I was so close to, and our family had gone through stuff. I mean, we'd gone through stuff. Like in my 20s, because I'm 42, just turned 42. Um, we went through stuff. Like my parents separated. The fact that they were still together was amazing. Um, my brother became a teen dad like within a 6-week period. Um, my parents separated, sort of got back together. At least dad came back home. They were in counseling, and then I came home from work, and my brother, who was a freshman in college at the time, who was never home, was home. And so he told me, hey, my girlfriend's pregnant. And not only is she pregnant, she's very pregnant. He had not been telling us a whole bunch. So like to have that rock my world inside of 6 weeks. I had started a new job at that time. So like that I had no safe space to go to. I had some coworkers that were helping me cope with what was going on. So for me, I'm a stress eater. Um, so I was eating a lot of things. But It's more the loss of my dad because it's a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas, that a lot of the things that you were mentioning too, that, um, well, why did I take this job and move so far away? Um, when I could have been there helping, could have had more time. Um, so that's like a bigger thing. As you can tell, I'm getting emotional. Um, Especially since like not knowing I was going to be doing this today. Um, One of the things in my Facebook memory popped up today, because this I was on this day 9 years ago that we went public with the information out on social media and things like that in our family. Um, my dad was diagnosed in April, 9 years ago, and so I read that post this morning, and it's still just as triggering, um, of crying. I have nights to where I want nothing more than to call my dad, um, and I can't. Um, what's great though is that I have still such a strong relationship with my mom. Um, my mom is so freaking strong. Um, but yeah, that loss, like, that's a loss that's never going to go away. It gets lighter. There are times where I can talk about my dad and not be as emotional as I am today. Um, I'm so grateful that I had that close relationship with him. Um, that I still have a close relationship with my mom. But it's hard. It's hard when that's gone. So that's more how I relate to Sisko. Is in that loss of that person that's no longer there. Um, that you don't get a do-over. You don't get to go fix um things that happen in that relationship, ways to improve that relationship. Um, that's gone. And so one of the things that I've done, um, and to help others, because as unfortunate it is for me to go through that, I've also had a lot of friends go through that. So it's more of knowing how to walk along them with them in their journey navigating this, to be an encouragement for them. Because the unfortunate thing too is when you're walking this path, you have so many well-meaning people that say such awful things. And they don't mean it to be awful. But in that moment, it's awful because you don't know where this person is that you're telling this to, where they are in their emotions that day. And it can be so well meaning, but it can be absolutely horrid on the receiving side. So it's more like I've learned what not to say. There's so many trite sayings that I've learned what not to say. And at most, I'll tell somebody, I've been exactly where you are. I know exactly what you're going through, and I am right here for you. And that's it. So like if you're having someone that's navigating this, or if you're navigating this, like holy moly, I'm here for you. Like I get it. I know exactly where you are. Um, so that's more like where I've been, is navigating 8 years without a parent. Um, and I will say it does get easier. It does. Which if you're just hitting this, like, you are not gonna believe me. But I promise it does get easier. So for me, like one of the things that I've been doing too to help me get healthier, is learning how to better navigate my triggers. Um, I'm also been in the process of losing weight. I have started an eating program in October. I've lost 80 pounds, since October, so I feel so much better. Um, so for yeah, it's just learning different coping mechanisms, because one of the things that I had to do on this eating program, um, was I couldn't go to my go-to, um, stress relievers, because you can't drink on this. You can't really, it's very strict on what you can and can't eat. So like I can't eat a Snickers bar, and I can't eat ice cream, and I can't eat cookies, and I can't eat all the things So it's more like going, okay, I have to learn and sit with what I'm feeling and process it better than doing something to suppress it. So I totally get going out and partying and drinking the day away and suppressing the feelings because you just don't want to feel them. I absolutely get that. Um, and so that's more of like what I've been doing over the last 8 years of learning how to navigate better for me, because I also want to be the a better person, um, be the person that my dad wanted me to be. So yeah, sorry if that triggered anybody. But yeah, that's been my journey. Um, it's not a road that I ever thought that I would walk. You know, in our 40s, we know that we're gonna lose our parents one day. I didn't think that would happen quite so soon. So, especially if you have a great relationship with your parents, you want them to live forever. So yeah, that's been more my journey, and it's been more recent. So
I can thank you for sharing that.
yeah,
I can absolutely feel that loss. And, I think that my pattern of taking the easy route in things is kind of, in a way, still sort of there, because there are certain things that I still hold on to that it's very hard to let go of or to really be able to talk about. So this was, let's see, almost 10 years ago. So at the time then, I had a son. His name's, his stage name's Nacho. He does some stuff with our podcast. And my second wife at the time, she wanted to have kids. She wanted to have a child of her own. And I couldn't, because I had, after I had my son, I had a vasectomy. Can't think of any good way of saying that besides that. But basically, we talked about it a lot, and I was really resistant to the idea for a while. So at one point I decided, I don't want to take away her chance, her opportunity to be able to have a child of her own. So we decided we were going to do IVF. I mean, that was the only way to do it. At the time, I was in my late 30s. She was in her early 40s. So it's not like time was on our side,
right.
Well, so we did this, and she got pregnant. So that part worked. Unfortunately, I can't remember exactly when, but fairly early-ish on, her water broke. And she got put on bed rest for several months. And she was in the hospital. Went and visited her there. The doctors kept her under close observation it was a couple months that she was on bed rest. And there was this night, it was actually early in the morning. I'd just seen her the night before. She called and said, "You've got to come down. I'm going into labor." So go down to the hospital, and so our child is born. Is a boy, and we named him Benjamin. And my family was there. Our family was there. Everyone was real happy, real thankful, and it felt like this is a good thing, a good day. Things seem to be working out. So after a little while, my parents left, and her family left. It wasn't too long after that and he was born a preemie, so we were in the NICU, and at one point it kind of felt like, and she worked in that NICU, so we're in the same area where she works, and it felt like the ambient atmosphere was changing. And hold on, excuse me a minute. This is getting a little interference here. Hold on, okay, there we go. Sorry. And so the doctor called us back in, like back in to talk with us. And the situation that they were having was that his lungs hadn't fully developed because of the earlier complications. And so we had our family come back down to be with us, and all their friends and nurses, doctors were doing everything they could think of, everything that they could do, and we're holding him, and this was 13 hours after he was born. And we took the pictures with him, laying in his little incubator, such a cute, little baby. And the whole room was quiet. It was all quiet. And I just remember hear the beeping, the noise of all the machinery. And it felt like it was the only thing that I could hear. So as I'm sitting there with my wife, and we're holding him, and our family is there with us and her friends, she looked over and said to me, "I think he's gone." And it was at that point, I looked down at him, I looked at her, and I reached over to whatever the thing is, I don't remember what it's called, and I turned it off. Nurse came over to see what was going on, why the machine stopped, and I took her wrist lightly and I shook my head. And that's something I replay a lot, was in something I've held on to for a long time, was me going through that moment of having to accept there was nothing else that we could do. And even to this point today, the outfit that I wore that day is in a closet. I haven't worn it since, because it's that reminder of what we went through in those 13 hours. And it's, when you talk about having that loss and being able to talk about it is very difficult, especially when it's something that you hold on to like that. And I there are times where I guess I feel a little guilty, but don't know why, because I feel like I'm the one. He was gone, and I'm the one that had to accept it and turn the machine off.
Yeah.
And that wasn't easy. That wasn't easy. And even now it gets me.
Yep. Yeah.
Not long after that, see, my mom, she had different health issues and complications, And so this was 2 years after, and we had done IVF again, and we had our daughter, and she was healthy, healthy baby. And I remember there was this night, we were at my parents. We were visiting my mom and dad, and we had my my son with me, and she's holding the baby, and it was just felt like a standard Saturday, standard weekend with the parents. And we left to go home. Told Mom, we'll catch you later. It was nice to be able to spend time with you. So she was sitting there on the couch and had a lot of time being able to hold the baby. And the next morning, the phone's ringing. Getting a call early in the morning on a Sunday is not good news to start with. And when I saw that it was my niece, who, nieces don't call you.
Right.
They'll text you. And she called, and I knew right then something was not right. And I remember that to this day, Uncle Jeff, something's wrong with Mama. Mm. She's not awake. She's not moving. So in a blur, I get up and get in the truck and speed over here. And it was surreal. It was all surreal as the EMTs were there, and they're trying to resuscitate, and took her to Close My Hospital, and she didn't make it. She didn't make that. And I felt like just the night before we were talking to her, she was holding our baby. Mm-hmm. And what happened was, in the span of that time, after we left, my dad said he was sitting on the opposite couch in that room, and she looked like she just, was kind of falling asleep. He kept asking her if she was okay, if she needed to go to the hospital or anything like that. And basically, he sat there with her all night and watched her fade. And to me, with that, I feel like, and we all feel like she's still there watching over us, because I've got to tell you, my daughter, even though she was 2 months old at that time, she's so much like my mom, it's scary. And yeah. I tell people this, and I know it sounds crazy, but the best way I can describe it is, like, she transferred her Contra to my daughter, because those were her last moments. And after holding our daughter, that's kind of when she started to fade. And so I know how you feel with feeling like, how much time do we have left with a parent or with a loved one?
Right.
And for any of you there that are listening or watching, one of the biggest takeaways we can give you from a story like that is, don't squander that time. You just don't know. Sometimes it happens suddenly. And especially with your parents, because that's the thing is, once they're gone, that's it. Yes, they're gone. And you don't want to live in that regret that I could have done more or seen them more or anything like that. So that's another one of the things that I can definitely, excuse me, definitely sympathize with you on. And that's another moment. So it's very tough. It's very challenging when you have a couple moments. And for me, it was decisions that I felt I took on myself. One was to decide to change my entire life and future by not playing a sport. It was to live with being the one to turn off that machine in the NICU. And I've got to tell you, those aren't always easy things to live with, because no one can prepare you for that when you're younger. There's
Right.
With our children today, how do you prepare them for facing anything like that with life? They all want to grow up so fast. They want to be
Right.
adults. They think it's fun, and it's not.
Right. I can remember when my nieces and nephew were little. I have two nieces and a nephew, and one is an adult. The other two are in high school. And they would all say, growing up, and I'm sure your kids did this too, I can't wait to be a grown up. I can't wait to do XYZ. And I'm sitting here going, I wish I was you.
Yes. Oh my God.
Wish I was back home and not had a care in the world and not having to worry about paying bills and all these adult things that you have no idea how good you have it. So yeah, I totally get that.
One of the best phrases I'd ever heard from a kid. It was one of my nieces. We were out at a campground somewhere. It was my my in-laws family, and I remember her saying, and every kid says this. My daughter said, "I'm bored,"
Uh-huh.
and it's kind of funny because bored is not in our lexicon as an adult.
Right.
We are not. We are never bored.
Right. There's always something to do.
Yes.
Always.
And here's the thing: if there truly isn't something to do, then you think, I'm forgetting something.
Uh-huh.
There's something I'm supposed to be doing. Must have forgotten about, because there's no such thing as being bored when you're an adult. It's kind of like when you have extra money in your account, you forgot to pay a bill,
Exactly. Yep.
which is a shame. You can't even be happy about that. It's like you start going through your account. What did I miss? Which bill did I
Yep.
forget to pay?
Yeah.
All the time. Well, so and Megan, I really, really appreciate you getting into that and being able to talk about those things. I know it's not easy, especially when you're kind of thrown in with about 45-minute notice on
Yeah.
what we're going to talk about, which is not necessarily ideal, but I feel like things can be more. To me, it feels like it was better for me to be able to talk about it when I didn't have. I had some time to prepare for this, of course, but there were several things I talked about that I didn't have on my mind to
Right.
do, and and I got to tell you, it does feel better coming out, and I've been kind of
Right.
glancing at our live chat, and there are several people that have talked about and have gone through similar situations. And one of the things that I want to say to our audience, to hopefully, I guess, give some advice. I'm no therapist or anything like that, but it's better if you don't hold on to it.
Mhm.
I
It will
know.
eat you alive.
Yes, yes, it will eat you alive. It really will. It will negatively shape the things that you do and say and how you handle life. Um, Carrying those kind of things around with you, you have to be able to say to yourself, it's not my fault. Uh, Going through the things that you've gone through, None of that was your fault.
Mm-mm.
Even though I made some tough decisions in my life, I have to be able to say to myself, it wasn't my fault. Um, how you deal with things that are thrown to you. Same with Benjamin Sisko. Losing Jennifer was not his fault.
Right.
Picard being assimilated and leading the Borg on an attack of Starfleet, that wasn't his fault. Even though he tried to save her and was not able to, that wasn't his fault. And the way that he was able to grow from that and to become a better person was to acknowledge that this isn't my fault. I didn't cause this. And that's one of the things that I think if all of you acknowledge to yourself, I think you'll feel much better about it. So as we close up on our time here, I just wanted to say, is there any final thoughts you have in regards to Sisko Day and what we're celebrating and how we're the actor or the character living with his past or anything that we talked about?
I would say for the Benjamin Sisko character, for those that have watched Deep Space Nine, which hopefully you're a huge fan of that too, I loved the development of that character and how, because you're just thrown into his tragedy in that first episode of the Emissary, but how him finally dealing with that tragedy and it's how it's expanded and shaped him over the 7 years of shows that we got to see. Um, to where I think if you had asked him at the end of that show, or able to ask that character, looking back at where you started 7 years ago, did you think you would be where you are today? Um, and his answer would have to be no, because he was still so stuck um, in that tragedy. So, like, for him to acknowledge that tragedy, to work on himself and do the mental health work that he did, along with his friends that were alongside of him. So, I'm a huge advocate of mental health and getting help and get help, keep searching until you find the right person that can help you. So like that's what I enjoyed about that character, because he had such great growth over those years to become the leader that he ended up being, to fully accepting being the emissary of the Bajoran people and what that entailed. So like, and for him to find love again and and all of that. So like that was just a fantastic overarching thing for Sisko for me. So I'm glad that this day is happening.
Yes, absolutely. Me too. And as we close up, for those of you out there, just want to let you know. So Sisko was able to forgive Picard for what happened, and all of you should be able to forgive yourselves for what you've gone through, and just remind yourself that it wasn't your fault.
Right. And forgiveness is a journey. It's not just a one-time thing. It's a journey.
It is. Thank you, Megan. Again, thank you, everyone, for listening and watching to us. And again, I'm Big J with Beyond Trek Podcast. Was here with Megan from Tribbles and Transporters. If you'd like to see some more about our respective podcasts, learn some more about us, see some more of our content, please visit starfleetpodcast.net and enjoy. Everyone, have a great rest of your day and enjoy Sisko Day.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.